Let's go. She's very polite. She waits for me. Go get him. I've made it to my destination, despite all the chaos in between. I'm going to be very grateful come the end of this day when I finally get into an apartment that's going to be long-term for Serbia. I think the next stage of my existence here has begun, officially. So I really wanted to make this video, and I think I tried to make this video twice already. And I think I keep repeating this, I guess, Sisyphean task is because I think it's an important topic, but I think it's hard to put it in layman's terms and a realistic perspective as to why it occurs. And it's a pretty simple question. Why is it so hard to date as an expat? And when I say expat, I think I should clarify someone who specifically is traveling to experience the richness of a different culture, to experience the people, to exist as a member of society, not someone who is a sex tourist. You're not seeking a relationship. It would just be nice as you travel to experience one, right? It's just a part of the socializing, if you're single at least. I mean, even if you're not single, I guess just forming close bonds with people. But I think that's a lot less of a challenge than dating. That's always gonna be more complicated. But, so here's the deal. As a passport bro, which I guess that kind of describes me, someone who is a Black American living overseas, who's just trying to get the best of life and understands there's other places in the world that will provide that lifestyle for me at a probably cheaper price. I've found it is quite frustrating when it comes to dating. The question really is, why is it hard to date as a passport bro, as an expat? And another question, I think, to answer that question would be, why do local women hesitate when dating expats? And I think that answer is pretty obvious. For someone who is typically stationary, one of the locals you meet when you travel, they're not going to be concerned with someone who's living a lifestyle that brings them so many places so often. And that's because, especially in Europe, people form very close bonds with their friends from elementary and middle school, with their job. They don't job hop like Americans do. Every 5 to 10 years, they just stick with the same job till they die, or at least till 67, where they don't get enough retirement, but they still make it somehow. And I think this is a big, big difference. People are generally slower. Expats are often traveling, even when they're based somewhere, everywhere, all the time. And most locals just aren't gonna vibe with that. So local women want someone who's more stationary, someone who's less active. Although one of the frustrations you'll experience is women think that they want someone who's very mobile because the lifestyle seems alluring. Someone who has the capacity, first of all, financially, and the will and motivation to get up and go somewhere new all the time, right? I think in this social media era, a lot of local women are tricked into believing that there is this guy, and I guess in some capacity there is this guy who is, a handsome, young, well off enough to just get up and go many times, many places. And sure, that person exists in some capacity, more or less. I don't know about myself. I don't know about the handsome thing, but I do okay. But financially, I'm okay. young and motivated to travel. And I think this is a highly sought after feature generally when women are dating. But the reality is they aren't willing to get up and move to Bali for 3 months. Probably not going to happen because they are like a nurse, not a traveling nurse, just a nurse. And their mom is kind of old, so they want to be closer to home. But their mom is like 62, so they're not going to die for the next 15 years. So mom's going to be home, they're going to be home, and that's not going to change for at least a decade and a half. So like, you know, they find this idea of a man to be quite attractive, but the reality of it is that type of man is just too wild. And I think this is maybe the second factor that makes it hard to date as an expat, and that is we often aspire for the extremes. At least when it comes to dating, we often aspire for the extremes. When I say that, I mean women, say a 5'5" woman. I know you Europeans don't understand what 5'5" is, but I forgot the meters equivalent. But a 5'5" woman would maybe seek a man who's 6'1", 6'2". And you might think to yourself, well, why would a woman want a guy who's that much taller than her? I mean, that just seems kind of impractical, right? Maybe like 5'8", that seems reasonable. But the reality is, when that woman begins dating and meets people, statistically, she's going to date someone who's within about 2 to 3 inches of her height. So 5'8", the average height. They seek the extreme, and they often settle with what is the norm. And as an expat, what that means is you may find women initially want to seek you out just to experience you and wherever you're from. But they're going to settle with someone who's a local as well. Someone who is of the same culture, someone who is not going anywhere, even if they have a boring job, even if they're kind of broke, even if they're kind of ugly. It doesn't matter because they know the culture and they're not going to go anywhere. So you have a pretty big problem there. And as an expat, as a Blackzit supporter, as a young black man traveling who's also dating, how do you adjust to that reality? I think the hardest part of that adjustment is, first of all, recognizing that you might be a hunk, you might be creme de la creme where you're from, or maybe not, doesn't matter. But when you go somewhere else, you're just a exotic commodity. You're just a unique individual, and being a unique individual doesn't necessarily mean that you're a highly sought after individual. So get used to the fact that you're, based off of your particular location, going to be more or less popular in general. And especially if you're a black man, a lot of places around the world just don't see you as a potential partner, maybe a person to fuck or to have a date with once, but not someone who can like raise a family because, I don't know, grandparents be racist, parents be racist, society be racist. It makes it a lot harder. So recognize that reality. You might be less popular in some places, but then recognize another one. You may have to pick a home base and really make it your home. I'm saying you pick a place, let's say Belgrade, Serbia, and you just don't leave. You go on vacations more than the average person does. Like, I don't know, you spend 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there every season, but for the most part, you just stay there. You stay where you are. You're still an expat because you're someone who left America or left your homeland and you move somewhere else. You're not exactly a vagabond, though. You're just a guy from somewhere else who transplanted to a new place, and that's fine. But I think if you're not trying to be more stationary, the real challenge would be finding someone who actually is mobile. And this might be another expat. Realistically, a woman that is from somewhere else, who's traveling as much as you do, who's as adventurous as you are, who has enough financial security to do it herself. But the problem with that is they are a high commodity. They are hot. I mean, it seems, I would say 80% of the women I meet who are actually attractive, you know, physically for me and my standards, and also expats who are traveling, who are financially independent. Those women have boyfriends or husbands. They are taken, and they've been taken for a long time, and there's not a chance you're going to get into that. So that is the tough part about finding a partner that fits all those boxes. Is it impossible? No. But the reality is, if you're only seeking that, if you're not okay with just like a casual date here and there, you're gonna be a lot more single. Now, I think maybe a tactical way to approach it is to go to a hotspot for expats, like Bali or Chiang Mai, just a place where expats typically go to do the experience, right? Meet a girl there who's your flavor, and then go to the place you want to go. So you kind of just bring your girlfriend with you. So I guess that's one of the pros there. Only challenge is, our only downside is, I think we often go to a country like, say, Serbia, and we want a local girl, right? For some reason or another, we think that particular culture that we exist in has some positives and negatives that we more align with culturally. So we seek a partner from that land. But if you're seeking out an expat, it's going to be tough to find an expat who's Serb, who wants to leave Serbia, who has all the means to. If they have all the means, they're probably already gone. But yeah, it's a tough challenge. It's one of my biggest frustrations out here. I do meet women who really fit the bill, but they often have partners or are just unavailable for some other particular reason, but they actually like me. What's the solution for me? I think I'm gonna more lean towards being stationary and allowing myself to slow travel, like every 6 months, go to a new place. And I think that should be enough time for me to meet a local who's also a bit more flexible with their zip code. A little vent about, I think, a popular concern as I walk my dog. Me and the pup out here. She's been walking in circles while I speak to you guys, and I'm sure she wants to go home because it's wet. So we're gonna do that, Majora. You wanna go home? All right, Majora. Majora, say goodbye. Say goodbye.